there are just people who decide early on that life will come to them or they will go at life. And
Mhm.
I think it's as simple as that. I think there's a lot of people, and that is reversible, of course, but I just think I just know, we all know people who are just like, things happen to me and that's just how life's going to be.
Mhm.
And there's other people that are saying there's something inside of me that I can basically go through any situation and still fight.
Yeah.
Amen
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, high school sports, man. I tell you what, I had some real dickhead coaches.
In high school sports?
Me
The reason I
too.
stopped playing basketball and football was because of my coaches.
Is that right?
Yep.
I felt
Mhm.
like I got fortunate. I had
Or
I had some awesome coaches.
yeah,
But
I guess the reason I stopped was because I chose not to, but
yeah.
they weren't helpful.
Yeah, that was
But
part of the impact.
you had good coaches.
Well, I think it was just my coaches always had like a connection to the school, and since it was such a small school,
Yeah.
like they knew my whole family.
Mhm.
So it was kind of challenging because my coaches were always harder on me than most of the other players because they knew if I would go home, it would only be worse if I brought it up to my dad that it was like bad at practice.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So they were able to
So
like
you
set
get
a
away
tone.
with
Like they were
anything.
able to like set a tone with me
Yeah.
pretty quick because I wasn't gonna go home and my dad like call
Yeah.
the principal. But I know I still actually like every birthday get a text from my high school basketball coach.
Pretty
That's
special.
amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. Coach Mater, shout out if you ever
Yeah.
listen to this.
Dude, this is like how crazy, like apparently I was listening to Huberman today on,
Man,
really,
he's
a
awesome.
really uplifting podcast. It was all about trauma.
Very light listening.
Trauma and fear. And so, but I was recently at, it was probably, gosh, when was it? Like about a month ago. I was back in Iowa, and my dad and I and TJ, my brother, we bought courtside tickets to the G League, like the G League.
That's sweet.
It was sweet.
Yeah,
it was,
that is
It was
sweet.
like us and like 70 people, but we were in
How much
the.
do those run for?
For us, it was like $50 for courtside.
Courtside?
Yeah.
That's
But you just felt like a king.
amazing.
And then there were
That
some
is
real
cool.
people who legitimately thought they were like the coolest people in Des
Yeah,
Moines
dude.
because you got people pretending to be like Leo DiCaprio with like the
Yeah.
kind of like I was when we were at the Cavs game.
Totally.
So I was sitting 60 rows up.
Yeah, with your lensless glasses. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but so anyway, we're sitting there, and no joke, my high school basketball coach walks by in front of us,
Huh.
and my dad, the guy's walking like 15 feet away. My dad just goes,
Douche.
No, he does not.
I love your dad. Your dad. Seeing your dad at the Sports Trivia Cup was actually amazing.
That's hilarious.
so yeah, that's my dad for you.
Yeah.
He was, and he was my coach all the way through probably till high school, which he was a good coach, but I did not. I mean, you think about it now. I'm like, if I knew what I knew now, I would have more agency and more confidence to drive myself to be better in those and
Yeah,
to probably
sure.
not quit. And so it's interesting knowing I wish I knew my ability and had the confidence when I was
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
there to do that.
But then you think about like I say that too.
Yeah.
But then I look at my brother and I'm like, he's so young. Like you put on your
Yeah.
you're like, but you were 15.
Yeah.
Like I was not even trying to.
Yeah.
I remember my freshman coach. He's actually a really good guy. But the students is actually because of how unhealthy my high school was. They made fun of him a lot because he was just choosing like to not be horrible to his fiance essentially, and I'll just keep it there. So the students were like terrible to him, but he Matt will remember this. But he essentially he was my freshman basketball coach, and during half times at home, the wrestlers would be finishing their practice.
Mhm.
And so we'd walk into the locker room and he would be trying to coach us. And all the wrestlers would just get completely naked and just constantly walk by as he's like trying to draw up plays. He's like doing all these things, and they would just walk by. And he'd be like,
man.
"Gosh," he'd be freaking out. He'd be like, "Put clothes on. What are you guys doing?" Like it would be the only practice that they would just all walk around so naked just to try to get under his skin.
Yeah.
So funny.
Well, it worked.
No, it definitely worked.
Yeah.
I laugh sometimes because I see like pros and cons to all the different like high school like sizes and public, private, all that stuff. I went to like a super small Catholic school. So there was this, I think from a young age, I had a real confidence because I always felt like I could compete.
Yeah.
But then there was also this like real insecurity because everybody knew everything about each other.
Mhm.
So it's funny to like look back and actually see like, whoa, that was actually a sweet opportunity. But I'm still carrying that thing of like, well, but if I am really how I am, then I'll I might be shunned. Like it's just really funny to think back to like when I was, I don't know, 14 through 18, like how much I allowed to shape me. And like
Mhm.
how much of it still isn't that
Yeah.
funny? Like 14 to 18, you're like, I'm so young and had no ability to really make like
Yeah.
big calls in my life. Then you look at like college players now, they're getting paid millions at 18, which is insane.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. I'm like, it makes me because I think knowing what I know now, I'm like, man, maybe would have loved to go to a small school where I wouldn't have
Sure.
had to like do literally everything in order to get playing time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
like I think knowing what I know now, I mean, I have a couple guys in my grade that I graduated with that are NFL players now.
Hmm.
Some who
Hmm.
went on to play like D1 college basketball, football. I
Yep.
mean, these guys are really, really good. But I mean, the commitment level, which is amazing, I just didn't know. No one told me that you had to like go to 7-on-7 all throughout the summer. That you had to be
Yeah.
going to speed and agility when you were an eighth grader to get
Yeah.
consideration as like a freshman for.
Mhm.
So it's just I had no clue that that was the standard. I just really enjoyed playing basketball and enjoyed playing football and tried my best at it. But it was
Yeah.
just when you don't know what you don't know, you're already behind.
That's
You
right.
know,
Didn't you graduate with like 1,000 kids or something?
no, my school had about 1,200 people in it. So it's about
Oh,
400
okay.
per class or 300 per
Mhm.
class.
Yeah.
Which is
350
pretty
per class.
big.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
pretty. Yeah.
well, that's the
How
thing
big's
too.
Harley? Per class?
Yeah, I graduated with 185,
Okay.
maybe, and that was like big. That
Yeah.
was like bigger than
Mine
St.
was like
Charles.
25 a class.
Yeah, which
So
that's fun. My brother's thinking about heading to a smaller school, and that's one of his big reasons. Is he's like, I just want to play with, I just want to be able to play.
Yeah.
And you
Mhm.
can't. Yeah, everything is like trained from second grade at this point, so it's not.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's not even like you can't just enjoy sports
I
anymore.
had a realization though recently because someone asked me, I can't remember who, but they asked me, "Do you think what's your plan with your kids for like competitive sports?" And I'm like, I think honestly, I don't really care to do the whole because we looked into
Hmm.
Judah getting into soccer, and it was like 3 practices a week and a game on a weekend, and I'm like, I'm not taking up 4 of my nights
Mhm.
for my
I
4 year old
know.
to play soccer. Like if he's anything like me, he's gonna suck at soccer
Me
and he'll
too.
only be
Yeah.
good at like basketball or football, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I know basketball and I know football. If me as a 30-year old man, like, I can probably coach my child better, give him more individualized attention, having him scrimmage me. Like he'll be a better basketball player uh when he gets the opportunity to play than if I were to put him in and just have him run around and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think
Ton
that
of it's reps.
yeah. And so
Ton of
I
it's
I think
reps.
that's my theory right now, but I think it's kind of an interesting whole thing that we're speaking about of just like life in general of how you can have responses from it because I look at those times
Hmm.
in my life and obviously it pulls me enough to be upset when I see my high
Hmm.
school basketball coach for my dad to yell douche at him. So I mean think our experiences in
That's
life shape us and
legendary.
things
Definitely.
like that is crazy.
Mhm.
No, I have the same. I would have the same reaction from my not my freshman coach, but another one of my
Another coach,
coaches,
yeah.
where I'd be like
Yeah.
Mhm.
feeling
Yeah.
the same way.
I did have a coach. If we are talking though about like the whole spectrum, my freshman year in basketball, my JV coach, I he and I just didn't see eye to eye. I was just a really big personality. I was coming off of starting varsity football as a 14-year-old, had hurt my leg, broke actually my femur at the knee joint, and was trying to come back for the basketball season. So it was like it's just a slow process. But my coach like didn't really like the big personality,
Mhm.
you know, and he played college ball and was just like just all over me all the time. Made it kind of not fun, at least at that age, which I don't think I would have had the language for at that time because I was pretty like determined to outlast him. But there was one time I still play really physically when I play basketball. I had like 3 fouls in the first quarter, and I was like, I just wasn't getting any call. I got like a charge call. I tried to take a charge, got a block on me. I just picked them up quick. Looked over to coach to sub me out, and it's a JV game, so it doesn't even matter. But my coach like literally looked at me on the court and goes, "No, I'm going to let you foul out in the first quarter." And I was like, I'm the only hope we have of winning the JV
Yeah,
game.
wow.
Like I didn't actually say that, but I probably did think that. And
I was told that I was
funny
told this by
process.
a therapist that 90%. This is what this therapist said. 90% of men's like issues when they have to revert back to their childhood to see like kind of why they operate out of the things they operate out of.
His coaches.
90% of them
In
have to do with
sports.
sports coaches.
Yeah, well,
Isn't that
so
crazy?
I have a hypothesis.
I
Well, it's
believe
because
that
you're putting
though.
your identity in it,
Yeah.
right? So like in the areas like
And they can be terrible.
oh,
Yeah.
for sure. But it's the area where you want most validation. So
Yeah.
because it's the area you put most of your identity in, you're looking for what someone says about you there.
Yeah.
And when a coach says something that's like directly at the thing that
Yeah.
you're cherishing the most,
Well,
that can like for a 14-year-old, that can derail.
Yeah,
the coach
and
is
it's such
putting
a
their identity
it's
in
such
Oh,
a
yeah.
fatherly role.
Yes.
Like I
Big
think about
time. They
I think
spend so
about
much time.
all the times where, and maybe it's probably why it's so hard for me to transition from middle school to high school, because it was the first time that my dad was my coach.
Yeah, that
Right,
is a
So it's
challenge.
like
Yeah.
literally from the time that I started playing basketball when I was in third grade, it was like basketball, football, baseball. My dad was always in the coaching staff, whether
Yeah,
or not
yeah.
he was the head coach or
whatever.
not. But I mean,
Yeah.
he was always there.
Yep.
And so I mean, I think to your point, it's like, yeah, it can be terribly damaging if because you are seeking for validation, you're seeking for affirmation, and quite frankly, it's a role where you should be fathered and you should be taught.
That's right. Well, I also think there's a well, it reminds me of the scripture that's like, "Be careful to those who are teachers." Like you should just take it seriously because like when you are coaching, you are shaping like future men and things like that. And I think uh, it's just undervalued sometimes, like the amount that it matters for you not to just get wins. And if you're a coach for your kid, make your kid look good, but like how much of it is like virtue building in the like future men and women that you're in charge of. It's it's crazy to think about. Yeah, I actually think we could probably do a whole
Yeah,
podcast
that was
on
an
it.
episode. So
Yeah.
Our opener.
I,
Yeah,
I
wondering
actually
if we were
prepped for
gonna
the
go
day.
that
Can
route.
I
Yeah.
watch us in? I've actually been wrestling with the theme for tonight's episode because I recently experienced, like with you guys, our missionary graduation at Damascus. So for those of you listening that don't know, we all work at a ministry called Damascus, and I helped architect a missionary program for about like my first 8 years there, and you guys were obviously critical to that. And this was the first year I wasn't actively involved in the graduation process because I've since moved on to a different part of the organization and trying to help bring some order there. And it was wild because it was a different experience. I'm usually in the front, kind of running the day. This time I was in the back, kind of just filling in where needed. And I had this experience. We were kind of closing the time, and as I was looking at the crowd and seeing these missionaries who I had in so many of their lives played a role in them discerning coming and then have done some formation where they're leaving, I saw in the midst of a crowd there was this father who had a son with special needs, and his son with special needs was wheelchair bound, and I was just like watching the way this father engaged with his son and was really moved. Like everything else kind of like faded away. This is like right before I left. I already had Nina in the car with Eliza because Eliza was past her nap time. Like things are coming to a close. And I was like trying to take it in all nostalgically, but just couldn't get my eyes off of this dad and his son. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what would I be like in a circumstance where I was given like difficult cards? Like the son was completely dependent. Like you could tell just was in need
Mhm.
constantly from the father.
Mhm.
And just to watch the father do it so lovingly and engage it without like any kind of um feeling of inconvenience. Like you were just watching it. And again, it was just moving me. And I was like, man, that is a real breath of fresh air in the world we live in today. Like we live in a world today where everything's about victimhood, you know? Like everything's like, oh, I just have like the worst like luck ever or the worst lot ever. Or if I got that opportunity, I would be so different. And I was like watching this father like just engage the situation he had with all of his heart. And it made it as if it was better than it would have been, even if it was quote unquote perfect or whatever. And I just thought about it the whole drive home with Eliza and Nina and like thought about it all day. And when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking, why don't we talk about the fight against victimhood? Like the fight against what most of the world is going towards, which is the way that I can get attention and the way that I can get empathy is by proving to everyone else how much harder I have it than them. And that's the excuse for everything I don't do that I said I was going to do. That's the reason that anyone is better than me at anything, is because I haven't been given the opportunities and I haven't had the chances. And like, look at my situation. And then I started like connecting it to my own life, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of situations in my life that I like if you were writing a story about like how you'd want it to go perfectly, a lot of the things in my life, it's like like they would be the opposite of that. And I was thinking, but I don't think about that a lot. Why is that? Because I've been so fortunate to be around people that show me how abundantly blessed I am to have the life I have, even if it's not written out in a book
Mhm.
perfectly. And so when I was thinking about the fight against victimhood, I was thinking about that father. I started thinking like, what are some of like the stories of history that show us that the heart of man wasn't actually made to be a victim, but was made to be, and again, excuse the cliche, but to be a victor, like to be someone who has whatever circumstances and sees himself through them, doesn't just see himself to them, like someone that looks at the greatest challenges in their life and wins, because they know that the best chance they have is to play the hand that was dealt to them.
Mhm.
And I think I'll share an extraordinary example and then an ordinary example, and then maybe give a couple thoughts, and then just throw it for us to chat about. But in the fight against victimhood, two names come to mind. The first, the extraordinary case, is for those who are Catholic listening, you'll know this guy pretty well. But Maximilian Kolbe, he was a priest in Poland, also a conventional friar, but he found himself in Auschwitz. And Auschwitz, one of the German death camps. Obviously, so many listening are familiar with that. He was just in the labor side because he was a man that was physically capable, and he found himself on the labor side with other men that were physically capable. And at one point, the Germans were choosing some of these men that were physically capable to actually exterminate them as just a sign that they were in charge and as a fear tactic. And as they were rounding up the men and lining them up to go to the gas chambers or wherever they were going to be taken for torture and eventual death, uh, in the line, the German Nazi placed a man who started crying out like, I'm a husband and a father, like this can't happen." Maximilian Kolbe wasn't one that was chosen. He looks at the man that got put in line and he goes, "I'm a Catholic priest." And like, I know that obviously we remember how heinous the Holocaust was for Jewish people, but also Catholics, Christians, like anything that was against the order that the Third Reich was trying to bring. Maximilian Kolbe is like, "I'm a Catholic priest, have me in place of him." And for whatever reason, the German soldier grants that, takes the other man out, puts Maximilian Kolbe there. And Maximilian is put into this large prison cell with these men, and they try at first just to starve them to death so they don't feed them. And it's well documented that Maximilian Kolbe was leading them in prayer the entire time he's in the cell. He's like just calling them to repentance. He's like, "Hey, like the reality is this is where we're at, and we all have fallen short of where we could have been before we got here. And so we actually can come before a God who can elevate us out of our circumstance and give us purpose even in this place." And like this like rally cry, and it gave a lot of them hope. So like many of them like were starved for days on days on days and stayed alive. Like it's actually documented that I can't remember. I think it's 4 or 5 of them, including Maximilian, like lasted so long they got frustrated and finally killed them via lethal injection. And it's also well documented that when Maximilian Kolbe's turn came, he had already just elevated his left arm like so that they didn't have to fight. Like we were talking about that last episode, but just like being the sort of man that at the end of your life is just like, you don't have to bring me peace. Like
Mhm.
I'm fine. Like I've played what I was made to play. Like if this is my end, this is my end. And I was just thinking, like, how many times could Maximilian have, like, in that whole situation, been like, "Man, if I was just a priest in America, if I was just a priest in England, if I was just a priest anywhere but Poland, like anywhere but France, anywhere but you fill in the blank, right? Like if I would have been a priest anywhere that the Nazis didn't take over, like my life would have been so much better."
Mhm.
Like or what if I wasn't taken to Auschwitz, but I was just taken to a work camp and not a death camp, and like just the infinite amount of things. And like what if I wasn't in a situation where I felt like I needed to step in for that man, and like he could have looked at all of that and been such a victim to the circumstance, but he wasn't at all. He was the antithesis to it. And the reason that, like, when we tell that story, like, even I get so excited by it is because it's clear to us as men that that's the right way to live. it's evident to us that it's like it would have made him far lesser of a man if all he did was sit and ruminate about how horrible his circumstances were and became a victim that like implored empathy from other people instead of just going like, you can be empathetic for my circumstance, but I'm going to play the hand and I'm going to play it the best I can with all that I have. And it's just this extraordinary circumstance that none of us are going to go through that I think is amazing. Second, more ordinary circumstance, and then we can talk about it. But I've just been, like I said, thinking about it. Ordinary circumstance, guy named Milton Hershey. You probably are familiar with that last name because Hershey is the most famous chocolate company in the world. And it's crazy because this guy, so he was raised by a single mom. He was the only one of his siblings that lived like into like child rearing age instead of just childbearing age. And his dad left the family, and this is like way before you have two pennies to rub together, you know. And he was raised on a farm in Pennsylvania, and to a single mom, jumped around schools because they had to move a bunch, and eventually decided like after he started working at 14, like I'm gonna start my own company, like I'm gonna do this thing. And again, not to draw out the thing, but he starts one candy company, fails, two fails, third and fourth businesses fail, starts a fifth one. And this isn't the famous Hershey company that we know now. It was, I think, Lancaster Caramel Company. You can look that up if you want to, Adam. But I think he eventually sells that one. That one succeeds, and it succeeds incrementally. It's not like a worldwide success. And then he launches the Hershey Chocolate Company, which not only is the like most famous chocolate brand in the world, but he built an entire like town in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, that like brought people life and liberty and the ability to pursue happiness, like what America was made for. And not to stop there. After he made all of his money through Hershey, he started what was called the Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And it was originally a school for boys, for orphan boys. So what he decided is he said, I'm going to take all my money and I'm going to put it into an education system that can raise these boys when they don't have anyone that can raise them. And that school still exists today. In the 60s or 70s, they opened it to girls, but it's still it pays for your all of your tuition. It pays for all of your sports fees, like anything, book fees, like everything's covered when you come there. And it's only for families that make less than half. Yeah, Lancaster Caramel Company. That was his first business. He sold it, and it was incrementally successful. But then, of course, that led him to get the money to start the Hershey Chocolate Company. So, like this guy, like ordinary, right? Like Maximilian Kolbe, that's an extraordinary story. And we get really excited about extraordinary stories. Like Milton Hershey, it's a very ordinary story. Like the guy like was raised by a single mom. His dad wasn't around. He wasn't fathered in the way he should have been. He didn't have all the opportunities in the world. He decided because he didn't have opportunities that he was going to try to make opportunities for himself. He failed like 2 to 4 times. I'm forgetting how many, but he failed a bunch only to then be incrementally successful, only then to be incredibly successful, only then to give all of his success to a community and to a group of kids that were forgotten about. And when I think about the world that we live in today and the temptation towards victimhood, I think about stories like that and I'm like, man, I hope that my story, whether extraordinary or ordinary, is told in that light. That like I don't want to be remembered for the situations in my life that weren't what they could have been. I want to be known for the situations in my life that were maximized. Like how well did I play the hand I was given? And so that's a long intro, but I'll lay that out. I think the fight against victimhood is critical for men today. And I think that guys like that matter, and there's a reason they matter.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, Brad. I love what you're sharing. I think the thing that kind of jumps out at me is the particular, like you can't be a victim and understand responsibility in your life. Like I
Mhm.
think that there's this reality that when we try to live a life devoid of responsibility, we live a life devoid of meaning. And I think about those both those stories you shared of Maximilian Kolbe and then Milton Hershey, that there is a responsibility of my life is not my own. There's something
Mhm.
outside of me that I need to give my life to. And I think that in this culture that we live in where I think that is such uh, a common plague that kind of, you know, people experience. I think I've experienced it. I know most people have experienced it, but I think it's a pervasive thing within our culture that some people don't even know is wrong. Is like this victim mentality. Is to be
Yeah.
able to say like what truly is a casting off of responsibility. This isn't
Mhm.
my responsibility. I'm feeling this way.
Mhm.
It's not my fault. It's everyone else's fault. It's
Yeah.
it's the external circumstances coming in on me. So whether it's anxiety hitting me, or whether it's pressures from other people hitting me, or whether it's society hitting me or the government hitting me, it's everyone's against me. It's not my responsibility to fix this. Someone needs to fix this for me. And I
Mhm.
think I see it in some family members. I see it in people that I see that I'm connected to. I see this victim mentality come up. I mean, I have this aunt that's kind of estranged from our family that has lived this in a way where, and it's truly sad, because what you see is a complete just trail of destruction from it,
Yeah.
like completely estranged from most of our family. Her children struggle to connect with her. Like there's this real destruction that accompanies
Mhm.
when people live from this place of victimhood. And I think, just kind of going back to what I was sharing at the beginning, to this, is just like when we live a life of responsibility, we don't live this kind of life devoid of purpose or meaning. Like I kind of bring up these children movies a lot because I have two young boys, right?
Yeah.
You guys have probably seen Pinocchio.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Pinocchio is one of those movies that I have not, prior to having a 3-year-old son, 4-year-old son. It was probably, he was 3 when we started watching Pinocchio. I was like not about it, because I remember when I was a kid being like, man, this is like kind of creepy. It's kind of
Yeah,
like, it's one of Disney's oldest movies, but it is an incredible parable. Like if you ever, you just go
yeah.
rewatch it. I don't know the
Yeah.
last time you guys saw it, but it's the whole premise of the movie. I mean, it's very parabolic in the sense of it comparisons to scripture, but it's this reality of someone who is given kind of a blank slate in their life and then is influenced by other people telling them how to live, right? Like I think about the story, or that scene where Pinocchio is kind of walking to school, and then
Mhm.
Honest John and Gideon, the fox, and the creepy cat come up to him and are trying to tell him like, oh, you need to live a life without responsibility. You don't need
Mhm.
to go to school like
Mhm.
your dad says so. You need to go and enjoy life. You need to go do all these things. And what ends up happening is, I mean, Pinocchio ends up becoming a victim, right?
Mhm.
That's how he
Mhm.
views his life, and until he's rescued, of course. But I think that's something that's kind of one of the first thing that kind of comes to my mind, is just the profound ability to understand your life has meaning because you have responsibility, and duty and responsibility are not something to run from. Like
Mhm.
I once heard it said that I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was duty. Behold, I acted, and duty was joy. Like there's this reality
Yeah.
of when I engage responsibility, I
Yeah.
engage duty. It's not something that takes away my freedom, it's something that gives me freedom.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, simply put, I think what you guys are saying too is the reality is there are just people who decide early on that life will come to them, or they will go at life. And I
Mhm.
think it's as simple as that. I think there's a lot of people, and that is reversible, of course, but I just think I just know, we all know people who are just like, things happen to me, and that's just how life's going to be.
Mhm.
And there's other people that are saying there's something inside of me that I can basically go through any situation and still fight. And I think there's that piece, but then there's also the piece of, Sam, you nailed it. It's There's a piece of, I take everything for myself, or I take everything into my own hands, and I have control over everything, and I have control over nothing, and I let everything come to me. And the middle line is responsibility, right? That we are individuals that have free will, and so we can choose each and every day what we do with that free will. And I think, the happiest I've been is, uh, when I have been able to say, in the midst of whatever's going on, that I will commit to these specific things, and no matter what happens, I will do those things.
Mhm.
And it becomes like, what somebody who's a mentor in my life, they call them, what are the things on the highways that just keep you on the road?
Guardrail.
The guardrails. They call them guardrails, right?
Mm.
That like and you can call them whatever you want, or whether it's like boundaries of a river or whatever it is. Like, these guardrails are things that basically, no matter what goes on, if you can keep these things in your life, you're still on the right track, even if, crazy things come up, even if, something in your family happens or whatever. Like, you can keep yourself on this track. And I was even just reflecting on this time. I was reflecting on this time 2 years ago, and I was in the best kind of consistent rhythm of my life. And what I found was, um, there was nothing about that time that was better than right now. I just said, I'm going to forget how I feel about what's going on right now. Um, and I'm going to just stay with what I committed to because that's what I know I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Mhm.
And I think that was just the happiest I was. Like I was even at that time I was trying to like in the winter I always put on a couple pounds and so I was trying to lose weight for the summer and I wasn't losing weight. Like I remember I was on a complete plateau but I would just remind myself every day, like it doesn't. The weight isn't what matters.
Mhm.
It matters that I show up every day. I lift, or at that time I was just getting cardio in 3 times a week. So
Mhm.
I get
Mhm.
cardio in 3 times a week. I don't eat sugar, and I don't do this other thing. Was what I was working on. And I find myself so frustrated right now because I'm trying to do the same thing before the wedding. Getting that good shape,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I've been so frustrated because like I'm plateauing and it's just been funny because I've been in such a bad mood about it, and it's been so cool reflecting on that time 2 years ago because I was like, wow, I wasn't mad because I just knew what I committed to, and I knew that the goal wasn't to have this exterior reality come to me
Mhm.
in the sense of like me getting out of this plateau or whatever, but my goal is actually just to do what I committed to do because I'm in the business of being a better man, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm taking responsibility
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like I think that's the thing that I'm trying to even get back into right now is like, who cares about the external reality of this thing happening over there or that thing happening over there? But what am I confident beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm supposed to be doing right now?
Mhm.
And for me right now, it's like I'm getting married in 4 months. So for me, I'm like, what are all the things that I suck at that that I know that I don't want to do when I'm married? And I've just made a list and I'm trying to do those things every single day. Who cares if some of the external realities get better? And they will, and that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
But the goal isn't for that. The goal is for actually for me to live the way that I want to live when I get married. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm committing to, and that's what I'm taking responsibility
Mhm.
for.
That's the importance of focus, I think, right? That
Yeah.
like the reason that we fall to this victim narrative is because we put our focus on the wrong things. To your point, Sam, like when I put my focus on duty or I put my
Hmm.
focus on like these are the controllables in my life, when I put my focus there, what ends up happening is I'm actually fighting a battle that's manageable. Like what happens when my focus goes to everything? Like no one has ever conquered
Yeah.
everything. No one has ever won everything, but there have been people that have won these pockets, and over time, it's accumulated
Right.
in their life. And so I think we as men can get so sidetracked in our focus that our focus becomes, and maybe we can banter about this, but I think at least our focus becomes, what would I be like if I had those opportunities?
Hmm.
Or it's, man, if I was just as fortunate as that guy.
Hmm.
Like what ends up happening is my focus then has nothing to do with my ability to improve my circumstance or to impact the people around me.
Exactly.
Like what ends up happening is I'm playing, and again, you push back, but like I think I'm starting to play in just I'm playing a fantasy. Like
Yep.
I'm not living reality. I know we talked about suffering last time and things like that, and
Yep.
it's like I am now living fantasy. What I am doing is I'm living in a world that is what could be instead of in fact what is. And reality is always better than fantasy because it's real. And so I think the
Yeah.
Yeah.
focus is what determines that.
No, for sure, 100%. I agree with what you guys are saying. I think I'm just getting passionate about it. It's like this, because I think if we can just name very explicitly what you guys are sharing, it's like you control what you can and you surrender what you can't. Like
Yep.
there is
Yes, sir.
a like if we understand that our life has a responsibility, there's a profound right there, extreme ownership over
Mhm,
your life, right?
mhm,
An
mhm,
uncommon commitment to your life. Like there's something about that your life is your life. Like I
Hmm.
can't fix Noah's life. I can't
yeah,
fix your
yeah,
life, Brad. I can't control your life, but I can control mine.
Hmm.
Right. So there is no good. There is absolutely no good in me looking at circumstances in my life and just bitching about it. And
mhm.
there's
Yep.
actually nothing worse than being around someone who all they do is
Oh
complain about
man.
circumstances.
Yeah, it's
It's
Especially
horrible.
if they don't know they're doing it because it's become such a
right.
pattern. It's like,
And then,
oh
or
man.
yeah, and then they fall into that narrative, which is the voice of a victim,
Mhm.
is to look at someone else and be like, "Oh man, that must be nice." Right? For
Yeah.
people to look at Patrick Mahomes celebrating, all these things, it's like, man, it must be nice to be able to have that, God-given talent
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
throw a football. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but there's also an insane amount of work
Yeah.
that went into
Totally.
that, right?
Yeah.
Like an
Yeah.
insane amount of discipline that went into that. It's
Mhm,
like, okay, I'm never gonna play for the Chiefs. I'm never gonna win a Super Bowl. I can acknowledge that.
mhm.
But what can I do? Right? What can I do
Yeah.
in my life? I can control these certain variables. And if I suck at it most of the time, whatever, just acknowledge
Mhm,
it and then try
mhm,
to get
mhm.
better, right?
Yep.
The thing about success is it's not an overnight thing. What it is it's an uncommon commitment to the long game,
Mhm,
right? If you
mhm.
can, if you can get hit, fall down, and get back up, as long as you get back up more than you fall down, you're going to be
Yeah.
fine,
Yep.
right? And so that's it's just this idea of progress over perfection, as opposed to,
Mhm.
man, these things in my life aren't going well. This person's life seems really nice to me right now.
Yeah, I like your point on Mahomes
Yeah,
because talent without work is potential.
yeah,
And so many men in our society today are just content with potential.
hmm,
Like
Mhm.
we live in delayed
Yeah.
adolescence. Or don't you see how much potential I have? Like I'm 40 years old, and do you see what I could do? It's like, yeah, but what are you doing?
Yep.
Like, because I want to know, about like the stories of engagement, not the stories of prospects that haven't happened in
Mhm.
the last 40 years that you're assuming are going to happen in the next
Yep.
20. It's like, what are you doing right now? And again, not a shot at anyone out there because I'm speaking to me as much as anyone, but it's
Mhm.
like talent without work is potential. Talent
Yeah.
plus work equals results, and results lead to impact, and impact is what we were made for.
Well, and that's the danger I think of, and you guys might fight me on this, but that's because I'm pretty extreme on this view. But that's the dangers of social media, big time.
Mm.
Is you constantly see what you don't have. Now, I would make, I think a
Mhm,
lot of you,
mhm,
you two would at least make an argument for the fact that you can see what you don't have, but and be inspired to the greatness that others have. I think you
mhm,
can
mhm,
find that on
mhm,
social media, but I find on social media there's a lot. It's constantly like I even had to stop doing this with the news a little bit because I was realizing I'm like, I think I'm just getting caught up sometimes in the reality that like I don't have this thing or I don't have that thing or I don't
yeah,
have that kind of money or I don't have this kind of thing that's kind of I don't even know if is real in the first place.
yeah,
But social media just is constantly showing the inaccuracy of people's lives so
mhm,
much so that
mhm,
it causes you to just constantly be looking at what you don't have.
yeah. Is
And I
that the
think
primary reason you're out on it?
Oh, that is the biggest reason. Well, because one, it's a time suck for me, but then
Sure, sure.
two, and I just don't have the self control to stay off of it,
Yeah,
and so I just
yeah.
deleted it. But I also think for me, it was just this reality of like it just makes me less happy because I'm
Mm,
constantly thinking about what I don't have, and I think on that's also the reality for globalization. Like I believe globalization has caused more discontentment and there's probably been a lot of contentment too. A lot of
sure,
awesome,
sure.
that if I migrated from Italy to the US, I can now talk to my family in Italy
Mhm,
every day.
mhm,
That's awesome. But I think at the same time, it's like we have access to everything and we're not just focused on like the farm we have or the
mhm,
small town
mhm,
we have and just being content with what we've been given in the time we've had
mhm.
and making the most of it.
Yeah.
And I think that there are arguments against both of those things, but I think that's
Mhm,
the dangers of those things is like you also while you need responsibility, you need to take things, take the bull by the horns and live your life. You've also just been given a set of circumstances in a lot of ways too.
mhm,
And you can look at them and say, um, wow, that person doesn't have this part. Or you
mhm,
could be like, this is what I got. Let's make the best of it. And that's fun. That's
mhm,
actually
mhm.
really like they talk about I've heard a lot of podcasts talk about companies that they say that they stop innovating once they have money because when they didn't have money, they had to find creative ways to to reach what they wanted to reach with what they had.
Yeah, to keep doing
And
the thing,
and when
like,
they
he's
yeah, and when they have enough money, they just like don't have to do that anymore because they could just pay somebody else to do it.
mhm,
And I think that's the fun part about life is like, yeah, you know what? Like even in sports, I love this so much. Like in football, for example, we'll still sometimes play like go out and run 7-on-7. And for me, like I have an awful arm. I don't know, like I can't, I don't throw the football far. I'm pretty terrible at it. And like our friend Ben, like I love playing with Ben because he just loves throwing like short, sharp passes. He doesn't want the exciting play really. He just wants, and like, what am I good at? I'm good at being semi quick and running a 10-yard out and
mhm.
catching the ball. So it's fun for me because I'm like,
Yeah.
this is what I got. I'm
Mhm,
not I'm
mhm,
not faster than like anyone. I can't throw the ball very far, but I know I can hit him on the 10-yard out and I can help my team move forward.
mhm.
And that's
It
fun.
is fun.
And so I think that's the thing that we can look at life as is this is a fun game we play with what we've been given and we can make something freaking awesome with it. And it doesn't necessarily like Hershey did amazing external things. Um, Colby did you may argue that he didn't do that
Mhm.
amazing of a
Yeah.
thing because he didn't really have any external reality
He
to
did the
show
one
for it.
right thing in front of him.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But the reality is, like, if we make those internal decisions every day
Yeah.
to commit to what's before us and try to make it as great as we possibly can, then what's going to happen in our life is, regardless of the external realities in our life, which I'm going to still guarantee 9 times out of 10 are way better, but regardless of that, you as an individual, I think that's where you can find legitimate peace.
Mhm.
You can find legitimate peace of, like, I took what I had today and I made the most out of it. What else could you ask for? That's all that you did. You did your best.
Let me pick up on two things you're saying. I think the first thing was when you're talking about companies, but imagine that, right? So you said once they make money, they stop innovating. Why is that? Because their focus was on the wrong thing. Their focus was on the money, not the
Mhm.
impact. Like
Yeah.
again, it goes back to the focus point. Like whatever you put
For
your
efficiency
focus
versus
on, once you
creativity. Yeah.
find, like you will find what you're focused on. There's a reason we have confirmation bias. It's because like once you make up your mind, you can see results into the thing you're arguing. We
Mhm.
all have to be careful of that. Like we have to go out of it, right? Like I find myself in this all the time. It's like I've made up my mind, and so I'm building an entire um, connectivity to just make me right instead
Mhm.
of like stepping out. So first of all, I think focus. Second, I sometimes think that we in the church, and I know we have plenty of people that listen that are Catholic Christian, like figuring out like higher realities in their life. Like we sometimes give the church credit for subsidiarity. Like subsidiarity is just the way the world works because God created it that way. Like I've heard Sam say before, and I've picked up on it too, that in the Great Commission, when Jesus says where you're going, it's Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth. So he starts proximal and then goes distal with it, right? Like it starts close and goes out. It's a ripple effect. Same thing in our lives. Like the principle of subsidiarity in the church is like you have most control over the thing closest to you. Like you and your wife and your kid, right? And then you guys can have friends that also have families and you can make big impact on them if you are who you're called to be. And then you as a group can have a real impact on the area you're in. And then that area you're in can have a real impact, but you can see how like it's actually
Mhm.
growing it out. So I think both of what you said, like looking at global, far reach, and then trying to bring it to home will never work.
Yeah.
It's always starting here and taking it out. That's the reason that principle works. It's the reason that it's the way the world was made. And then second, I think I'm going back to that focus point because what you focus on, you'll find is the thing you obsess on. It's
Mhm.
going to be the thing you take your identity in.
Yeah. I kind of want to change tracks for just a second
Do it.
because I think whether there are people listening right now or whether it's just me knowing there are people in the world that have a really hard hand, right? Like I think that there's just a reality that people are like do have hard
For
circumstances in
sure.
life, right? Like
Yeah.
harder life than I've ever had to live,
Yeah, sure. Sure.
And I think I'm not picking on you two, but I do think you both have had some significant hard moments in life, like harder than I
Mhm.
have. And I think I'm just curious, like people that are sitting here listening to us and being like hearing us say, control what you can control, change your attitude, don't let the external circumstances change your life. Like what you guys have both had crazy hardships in your life. I guess what would you say to the people that are feeling discouraged right now and don't feel like they can
Mhm.
surmount that hump of
Mhm.
how do I take control of my life? Like how would you testify, if you will, to the personal agency you've had in your own life to be able to take it day by day to where you are now, where you don't feel
Yeah.
like you're living from that victimhood in your life anymore?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love the question. I don't know the best way to answer it because I think it's one of those realities where you your best play is to engage it and then to keep your eyes open for what you're seeing.
Hmm.
You know?
Mhm.
Like probably the most recent thing in my life that I would consider kind of one of those marked memories of like, man, that is different than how I wanted it to be. Like being from a smaller town, like your family is just really important. So your extended family, cousins and uncles, it's like they live in your house. And it was a couple years ago now that my uncle passed from an overdose, and he had battled drug addiction my whole life, and so uh, that wasn't like uncommon for me. But I remember I actually walked off stage at Damascus where we work. I was emceeing an event, and I had like two or three missed calls from my dad, and I was like, "Man, my pops doesn't call this time of night like two or three times in a row. Like we usually schedule our talks, like all
Mhm.
that." Um, I'll make a long story short, but he was just like, Your Uncle Dwayne passed tonight," and I was just like, I had expected that phone call. I don't don't know, my whole life. But like my dad worked a lot growing up. My Uncle Dwayne never missed a game. My Uncle Dwayne called me weekly, like messaged me all the time, like really close. And I remember going home and we were just kind of like, you know, um, like grieving. And there was a moment where my mom was like, we need to go clean out Dwayne's apartment. And I didn't like no one was gonna go with her. Like she was just like, we need to go do that. There wasn't like a ready response to like go. And I was like, Mom, I'll come with you. And I remember like walking in, and the reason I like lay it out like this is because the reason I struggle answering it is like I just had to be at a place in my life where I was like, I'm going to engage this. And even looking back, I'm not sure if I was the right person to go with my mom. Like if we're just gonna like put it all out,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I think there were better people to accompany her there. I'll leave that off mic, but like but I did. And so when I went in, just keeping my eyes open, I was just like, whoa, like he actually passed right there. Like I'm sweeping up like piles of pills off the floor. And it's just like trying my best to just engage the moment. What happened in me is like I actually just experienced reality and just played it for what it was. Like, how can I love my mom here? And when my cousin Derek comes, like, how can I help bring him into the space? And like, what ends up happening is, and again, it has a scripture involvement, but you can see this in your life, like even if you don't quote it, but like don't worry what you are to say when you engage the things in your life that you know are in front of you, for it'll be provided for you what to say when you're in that moment and engaging it. And that was my experience is like,
Mhm.
man. And you know, I only say that because when you ask, you're like, what kind of resolve? Like the people that are struck, it's like those circumstances suck. Those
Yeah.
circumstances hurt. Those circumstances, like I just think here's what it is. It's that I think as men, we go into those circumstances thinking there's a right way to engage that. It's like, no, there's
Yeah.
actually not a
Yeah.
right way to engage it.
Yeah.
Like the right way is
To
to
engage it.
engage it. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Like no, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's a problem that happened, and it is hurtful that happened, and it's like whatever, like you can experience all that. So I guess my answer to that would be like when you look at the hand in your life, instead of focusing on the hand, focus on the game.
Mhm.
like like yeah, that's a bad draw, but like man, like all the learning I can do and how much love I had for him. Man, the type of man that I want to be
Mhm.
because of some of the things he instilled and because like that stuff comes together. So I don't know if that's the perfect
Yeah.
answer, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, I would say because I would say that this for me in my life is a daily battle. Like I would say every day I am wrestling with with choosing one of these things cuz
Yeah.
I think for me like it is anytime something bad happens to me I'm like, "Oh yeah, like well my dad died." So like my life kind of maybe I was just one of those people that whose life is meant to suck. You
Mhm.
know, like that's an easy thing to fall into,
Mhm.
right? And I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
one of the things that I have come to, and I've really seen this from like watching my dad's mom. So my dad's mom, when she was maybe 2021, her 17-year-old sister died of leukemia. She she was, her so literally when I was 1 year old. Well, no, let's just go in order. So that happened. Then she's, has her first son. Then she's pregnant with her second son after she's married to her husband. And while her second son, who's my dad, was in the womb, her husband drowns at a party at the age of 25. And she has to bury her husband.
Mhm.
She's
Mhm.
raising two kids with like not a whole lot. Um, she, raises two awesome kids. They get married when I'm one. uh Her house burns down on Christmas, like crazy
Mhm.
stuff her whole life. Then she loses both of those sons in the span of 15 months. So her son,
Mhm.
passes from some things that I won't share here, but then then my dad passes from cancer, and this happens within 15 months. She now is, and then there's another thing that happened in her life that she got screwed out of something that was just horrible. And I've never in the whole time I've known her, and that's 28 years. I've never heard her say she's now in her 80s. I've never heard her say like, "Well, Noah, that thing happened because I
Mhm.
lost my entire family, or like she has every excuse.
Every opportunity for complaint.
And
Mhm.
she's just never blamed like anything that's happened and be like, "Well, no, like my sons died or my husband." Never. Like she had so many dreams for her life. She has accomplished amazing things, but after she sent her kids off to school, she went and got her degree and became a teacher and like got her master's actually and became a teacher and taught for many years. And just like she never used that as an excuse.
Mhm.
And I think what I've gathered from that and what I've started to live through as I've lived through my own life is just like, yeah, all of that sucks. And it's a daily battle to not choose to wallow in that. However, you do have one life. And so what would be the better thing to do? I think that's what it comes down to for me is like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I could wallow. And if I wallow, like I can just be sorry for myself, but I'm kind of like running out of time on this earth. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
every day that goes by, time passes off the clock. And I think
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just do that? Or maybe I choose to make the most of what I have right now? And so I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
that's the question for anyone who's kind of struggling is like, well, what do you think you should do? What would be the better decision for you to do?
Mhm.
Period. No
Mhm.
matter what has happened to you, all the suffering that's occurred to you, what would be the more enjoyable thing to do
Mhm.
even?
Mhm.
Because that and I think that's the question you have to ask yourself because
Yeah.
I don't even want to negate that this is a daily struggle because it totally is. Like I have to choose that every day, but I
Mhm.
think I find myself asking that question like what is what
Mhm.
what is actually going to help me in this
Yeah,
moment with the
leaning in
time
or
that I
tapping
have?
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like you have a cool testimony though, because I feel like when it comes to just even the conversation around your dad passing, like I know that you when it first happened, mostly because of how young you were, but like you didn't engage it at that time the way that you would in hindsight want to engage it. But I
Mhm.
feel like you're engaging it differently now. And I think that could actually be a cool testimony for people listening that are like, yeah, like I've had these things and I haven't engaged
Mhm.
them well. Like, what are
Yeah.
the ways? I guess not to overshare, but like, are there
Yeah.
ways that you engage it now that you'd want to share for someone that's like, I've gone through something. I don't think that I was there. I think I was absent. I think I tapped out. I think I
Yeah.
played victim or forgot about it or escaped from it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, how do you go about engaging it
Well,
in
yeah,
hindsight?
I think I ran away from it. And I would literally say I ran away from it up until early last year. Like, no, no, no. I would actually say about a year ago, I was running away from it. But what I found was that in running away from it, I was causing so many other problems in my life
Hmm.
because I was just trying to stay absent of it and being like, just stay on top, just stay on
Yeah,
top,
yeah,
don't go in.
yeah,
And
like
I
that
think,
classic passiveness. Like, yeah, that
yeah,
happened, but I'm
yeah,
on. And it's like, but are you on really? Yeah.
exactly. And it wasn't until about a year where I went and took kind of 4 days in complete silence, no phone, nothing, and had a mentor of mine lead me through that time that I recognized that so many of my vices and problems were stemming from my coping mechanisms that would keep me absent of feeling the reality that
Mhm,
happened.
mhm.
And so then after that happened though, I was probably in like 6 months of wallowing. Like I was probably in 6 months where I was like, wow, that
That's
because
heavy.
I think I just realized for the first time in 12 years that it happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think I realized, oh my gosh, that happened to me. And I was through like 6 months where I was like, oh wow.
Like, I
Like
can be
that
bummed
actually,
about that.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
Like,
hard.
because I never took a moment to be
Mhm,
sad about it. And
mhm,
so
mhm,
that was really good and healthy and awesome. But I think as I've come into the coming months, I think there's been like a beautiful, some would call it morbid, but just a beautiful recognition that like while I might not die that way or whatever, like I also have a clock that's running out. And I
yeah,
think
like,
for
I'm gonna
me, I'm
die.
just like, I this life is so short. Why not engage it in the best possible way I can?
Yeah.
And like every day's a battle in that, and time is fast, and you're gonna blink and your life's gonna be over.
Mhm,
And so for me, I'm like, all I need to do is just engage. Like the moment is infinite, right? Like the present time is infinite I think I turned and but I again like I think I flipped the script and I turned a page and said this is the way I'm going to live,
mhm,
but I would be totally lying if every day I'm
mhm.
like I could choose that. I could
Yeah,
choose to
yeah.
just
Those coping
lay in bed all
mechanisms.
day and
Yeah.
like feel the pain of my life.
Mhm, mhm.
But I think at the end of the day it's like what would be better, and I have had days like that. And
Sure.
I think I've every day that that's ended I've been disappointed,
Mhm.
not because I feel shame but because I'm like that's a day I'll never get back.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how I've
I
tried
could
to
have
engage
engaged
it.
it differently.
Yeah.
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 Wonder you were the one who asked the question though, Sam, so I'll throw it to you. But yeah, like thoughts on either of those? Any takeaways?
No, I mean, I think that what I'm hearing you guys say, and what's kind of bringing the whole conversation full circle, is just you have permission to feel it. Like you have permission to
Mhm.
experience it.
Mm.
Like I think about there's a reality that you are a human person that is made with emotion. Like you are a human person that is made with feelings. They're not bad. Where it
Mhm.
goes awry and where it goes off track is when we wallow, when we sit there, when we believe that life is against us, when we believe that we aren't
Yes.
the actor
That's
of our
right.
story. And I think that that's the
Huh.
truth, is like you can experience something, you can feel sad about something. That's why there's an importance to mourning. That's why entire cultures and civilizations have had, you know, rituals around mourning and around grieving and around experiencing suffering. And I think this is such an appropriate conversation on the, like, after having a podcast all
Mhm.
about suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're allowed to experience it, but I think we do have to engage it, right? To come face to face with
Mhm.
it. So I love what you were sharing, Noah, of like, we can't just sit there and like try to avoid it. Like
Mhm.
the obstacle is the way. Like
Yeah.
we cannot go
Yes.
around it. You have to engage
I
it. So I think being able
yeah.
to be able to really see it for what it is, but to also not let it dictate your life. Like what a horrible, horrible thing if your life was dictated by the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that were hard, that were
Mm-hmm.
suffering. Same for you. Like I mean, think about
Yeah.
my life. I've had some very like difficult things that could have been completely
Mm-hmm.
like monumental in my life had I not engaged them, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to feel it, engage it, but then you have to go forward. Like there has to be this idea, and I mean, Saint Benedict talked about this: of forward, always forward. Like
Mm-hmm.
if we're not taking steps forward, we're regressing. So
Mm.
progress. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that being able to just say is like, if it's day by day, that's okay. If it's hour by hour, that's also right. If it's minute by minute, that's all right. Wherever you're at, being able to engage and be like, okay, one more, like
Mhm.
whatever that looks like. And I think so. That's
It's
what
really
I'm
good.
getting from this, and kind of just summarizing what you guys are sharing is I think we have to be able to give ourselves permission to feel it. We can't wallow in it. We have to engage it, and then we have to be willing to move forward.
Yeah, you're connecting something for me there, Sam. I love what you said. Like, man, what was connecting for me when you were saying that, and the reason I was nodding so strongly is because I've heard this said of pornography before. So stay with me in this, but it's not pornography's problem isn't that it shows too much; it's that it shows too little.
Mhm.
The victimhood mentality is not a problem because it's too much; it's because it's too little.
Mhm.
Like victimhood is fake feeling it. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like victimhood is fake feeling it. It's just like, well, it's everything here. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna really feel it. Like I'm gonna come here. I'm not gonna blame the big bad world. I'm gonna come here and go, oh wow. Okay, I'm feeling that. Okay, because that was lesser than what I wanted. And what does that mean? Well, that means that I was made for more than what that presented. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that I have to make the next right choice to actually pursue that. Like victimhood actually stops our process. Or does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's not that victimhood is like going like way too far out. It's that it's like stopping it artificially and not engaging the whole thing. So
Mhm.
then I can actually say, I'm gonna own what I can own, control the controllables. I'm going to surrender the things I can't, and I'm gonna make impact from that point.
Mhm.
Love it. Good. Fight against victimhood. Cheers to that. I probably best to move to principal objective now. So, uh, uh, PO. Last time, I'm forgetting actually. If I'm being
We talked
transparent.
about intentionally engaging your day. That's kind of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
piece
yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
No, thanks for reminding me that because it's funny because we just live life together. So we had like small group where we made goals, and I was forgetting which one, but uh, I for engaging my day like intentionally, I was talking about my exam at the end and like how important that is for my day. I have felt amazing about that recently, and I would highly encourage anyone listening, like even if you don't want to make it like a prayer or whatever, like at the end of your day, just thinking like, what did I do today that like I could have done differently, and what did I do today that there was grace or just like goodness in, and being able to celebrate those and then challenge you in the others. It really does change my life. It's helped my relationship with my wife because I've been able to go to her the next day and go, hey, I know we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I was thinking about it and like I kind of snapped at you there. Like that was because I was self-conscious and I snapped at you. And that's not love. So I've been pumped about that and I'm excited to see how it keeps going for sure.
Yeah, I did super well with mine actually. I feel like this is the first time that I actually did that, but the period of time in between, it was funny because I hit a very, very busy period of time
Mhm.
from that moment where I had to intentionally engage my day and kind of say, "Oh, that sucks. Good." Like
Mm.
I mean, there were 2 days back to back where I was like basically working from really 6 a.m. to 11
Sun up to
p.m.
sundown.
Just
Mhm.
not like driving over, being in Dayton in the morning, or Cleveland in the morning, Dayton in the afternoon, Centerburg, all over the place. And
Mhm.
it was actually 3 back-to-back days of just nonstop commitments that literally were I couldn't even work during the time because I was so engaging with other people and all this stuff. And it was awesome because I just was like, I'm exhausted. I uh, and haven't felt this tired. I haven't felt like I haven't been able to get caught up on
Mhm.
sleep, on my work, all of that in a long time where I liked it and things weren't like terribly structured. And so I was moving a lot and I just had to be like, good. And it was a great time of just
Mhm.
reminding me of that and intentionally engaging. And so I was super happy with it. Did I get a lot of sleep after that was done? I tried late yesterday. I tried to go to bed early, but otherwise,
Yeah.
it was a blast. And so I actually engaged this one pretty well and felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think all of us were kind of in a crazy couple weeks, but
Definitely.
the the big thing for me was probably trying to engage the most important thing in my life right now, which is my wife and I are due to have our third little one here
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
in the next
man.
month, and so I think I've just voiced to some friends that it's been a real struggle because of the busyness of my life, and so I was challenged by a friend of mine to just really engage the time that I have left, and so I think I was intentionally
Mhm.
engaging my
Mhm.
time by just being available and attentive and aware to my wife's needs.
Yeah,
So
good
like
work, man.
Mm,
being able to, you know, be able to get out of bed and stretch her hamstrings when she's asked me to, or
Yeah.
to be
mhm,
able to give a massage, or to be able to talk through fears and anxieties, and to be able to just, I think,
awesome.
be attentive to her. So I
Yeah,
think
man.
that's where my days crystal and perfect. No, but I think being able to engage the principal
Yeah, that's the good
thing
stuff.
was the
That's
big thing.
sweet.
So
Yeah, I love it. You love it. Yeah. So PO this week, I'm trying to think of just man, our conversation was just rich in so many ways. You guys have a thought on like maybe something we can center around? Fight against victimhood. Obviously talked about engaging our lives, talked about focus and where our focus can go awry, talked about responsibility.
I think I was convicted by the conversation around complaining. Like I am a chief complainer. I'm very critical.
Mm,
I love to look at things and be like, that sucked. Um, and I'm way harder on other things than I am on myself a lot of times. And so,
mm,
um, I think one of the thoughts I have is just finding somebody who spit. You guys have wives, so they're really good at this, and they would
mhm,
probably enjoy doing this for you. But just finding that key person that really sees me the most and asking them to call me out on the complaining. Um,
yeah.
because I just know that like so much of my time is complaining
Mhm.
about things that have already happened, and it's so much easier to complain about things that already happened because you're just putting down what already happened. You can't do anything about it, and
I
so
like that.
that's something that came to my mind.
Yeah, like negative speech in general.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I feel like I can be overly critical whenever I'm feeling insecure. I tend to get pretty critical of
Mhm.
the things around me. Um, I don't know if that lands with you though, Sam. Negative speech,
yeah,
engaging it.
yeah, I think that's
What
good.
do you
I
think?
think there's a maybe just maybe like a more this is the thing that kind of resonates with me. I'm not. I have other vices. I do not. I don't really complain a ton, but there's this. Uh, I was striked. I sent you guys a podcast the other day by Father Stephen Gadbury
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Sean Ryan,
Hmm.
but it's a mantra that I was actually going to get tattooed on my arm, but then it just was ungodly expensive to
Yeah, yeah.
to do both. So I didn't get it tattooed. But it's this Latin phrase from the Jesuits that says "age quo agis," which means "do what you are doing." And basically, what it means is like don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
Engage what you're doing, and do it
Hmm,
with a whole
hmm,
heart.
hmm.
And so I think for me, just like that idea of responsibility, I think is the one that kind of pervades. So I can sometimes feel like I'm juggling a couple different balls. Like I'm trying
Yeah.
to juggle my own personal life, right? So I'm trying to engage like health and logging my macros and getting sleep and like taking care of myself. And then I'm juggling the ball of my work and making sure
Hmm,
that I'm doing
hmm. Mhm.
KRAs and my rocks and getting my quarter done and all this stuff. And then I'm juggling my family life of like taking care of my children and taking care of my,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes I can become so anxious and become like, man, my life is so full. And, my wife can say like, oh, my life is so full. I'm like, well, no, my life is so full. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I think instead of comparing, like busyness and getting anxious about the different roles and the hats I have to wear throughout a given day, I can just, that mantra is what came to my
Yeah,
mind is like, just do what you're doing,
I
don't
like that.
half-ass it, be full.
Yeah, I like the idea of combating comparison. I
Mhm.
like that a lot because like you're saying it in that way. You're saying it like when complaint happens, what's really happening is like you're comparing what could be to what was. Like when I
Mhm.
do when I get critical, what I'm doing is I'm comparing. I'm like, but yeah, see how like all these things are off. So like, don't come at me with
Yep.
that. So I kind of like that combating comparison, seeing just how it manifests in our lives, and then
Mhm.
maybe bringing it back.
That's sweet.
We're gonna do that. Encourage you guys to do it with us if you want, combating comparison, so that we can fight against victimhood, which is sweet. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in a couple weeks.
Boom.
Modern man, share this with someone if you think they'd get something out of it. Until next time.
Modern man, don't be a douche.
I looked right at you for the delivery. See you
Boom.
next time, gents.